All right, Sergio, the long-standing rivalry between Kell Brook and Amir Khan is officially over, with Brook scoring a knockout win over Khan last Saturday. Khan now is leaning towards retirement. The question is, will Brook follow him? Brook is 35 years old, but he does have some potentially lucrative offers waiting for him if he continues. So I'll ask you this: should Kell Brook's career continue?
No, it shouldn't. And I'm going to make a case for it here, Mannix, because Kell Brook looked good against Amir Khan, two washed-up fighters. But Kell Brook is not going to get a big payday versus another washed-up fighter. That's it. That was your one. You got your glow back. You got people excited again. Kell Brook's an exciting fighter. He's only been knocked out 3 times by 3 pound-for-pound big-time fighters. But I don't think he's going to face another big-time fighter. He's going to face a young gun, a young, hungry guy like Conor Benn. And look at what he did to another former champion in Chris Algieri. Algieri doesn't want to go out like that at 37 years old, and neither does Kell Brook. So I just think it's the wrong decision to come back versus a young, hungry lion. Leave with your head up, leave with some money, but fighters hate leaving money on the table. And that's just the way this game is.
See, here's why I think Brook should take one more fight. For many years, Brook has been forced to adjust to what other fighters want. He's been the opponent a lot of times. He moved up in weight to 160 to face Gennady Golovkin. He went all the way back down to 147 the next fight to defend his title against Errol Spence Jr. Against Amir Khan, he had to cut down to 149 pounds because Khan wanted it that way. So he's always had to do what the opponent has told him to do. Now, Kell Brook is in a position where he can look at some of the lucrative options out there and tell those fighters what to do. He all of a sudden has become the money man in this situation. So if Conor Benn wants to face him, Conor Benn is a welterweight. He can say to Conor Benn, I'm not going to 147. You come up to 154 and I'll fight you. Chris Eubank Jr., a middleweight. Brook has already said, come down to 155 and I'll fight you at middleweight. So I don't want to see Kell Brook squeeze down to 147 again. No interest in that. Nor do I want to see him back up at 160, a weight class that he really has no business in. But if Conor Benn or Chris Eubank will come to the weight that Kell Brook dictates, I'm good with seeing him go one more time.
The weight's not going to matter because it's the age. That's the only number that's going to matter. And if you ask guys like Chris Algieri, who I just mentioned, he got stopped pretty bad in a knockout of the year type with Conor Benn.
Yeah, but Sergio, what's the difference?
Hold on, I'm not finished.
Hold on. What's the difference here? Chris Algieri is a natural 140-pounder. He went up to Conor Benn's weight class where he didn't have the power to do anything with him and got knocked out. That's different.
Doesn't matter. It's the way he got knocked out, and it's the fact that Algieri thought he can win that fight. When you're 37 years old, once you get to the 5th, 6th round, you understand that the legs aren't there. Another guy, I'll give you another guy, Jorge Linares. Look at what just happened to him. I mean, he had a fantastic career, a great career, a multi-division world champion, but you end on your back. You end you end the wrong way, and if you can take those fights back, I bet you fighters like Algieri and Linares and so many other great champions, they will take it back, man. It's great to go off into the sunset. Not many fighters do it because we don't like leaving money on the table. But if you can go off to the sunset with a bad loss and not a bad knockout, I mean, that's good. I just don't think it's a good idea for Kell Brook because he's going to be fighting a younger, stronger, hungrier fighter, a beast in Conor Benn, who's coming off a knockout of the year. If you're going to come back with another washed-up fighter, or else I say no.
No, but Sergio, that happens in boxing all the time. Very few boxers go out on their own terms. More often than not, they go out with a loss, and if you stop pointing at yourself, you did not go out on your own terms, you still won't retire, even though I ask you about it every single show. Conor Benn is a good prospect, but he's never been hit by someone with the kind of power that Kell Brook possesses, and he's never fought, or at least not at this level, at 154 pounds. I think Kell Brook has more than just a puncher's chance in a fight like that. Chris Eubank Jr. has been fighting in recent years at 168. Asking him to come down to 155 will take something out of Chris Eubank Jr. And think about the money that could be made in a fight like that. Brook against Khan sold out in 10 minutes. You're going to tell me that Brook against Conor Benn wouldn't be a sellout? That Brook against Chris Eubank Jr. wouldn't be a sellout? These are massive fights. They'll bring massive paydays, and they're fights that I think Kell Brook can win.
Massive paydays, massive crowds, and pretty much a massive concussion, because I just don't see Kell Brook being able to, he gets stopped. When he fights a top dog, he gets stopped. When he fights a champion, he gets stopped. Conor Benn hasn't become a champion, but he has the championship tools, and he's a beast. He's really, really damn good, man. I watched this kid fight, and what he did with Algeria was special, and that's only gonna want him, keep him hungrier. He's gonna want to do that again. If he can do it with another former world champion that's right for the picking, and Kell Brook, who's coming off an exciting, popular fight, dude, that's perfect for Conor Benn. Conor Benn's salivating right now. I think Kell Brook should leave that money on the table and think about his future and his health.
So you want to see Kell Brook fight a washed-up former champion, huh?
I know where you're getting at. Yes, I'll do it.
Well, Sergio, on Wednesday, Twitter gave us the social media fight that we didn't know we needed. Andre Ward and Gennady Golovkin, two of the best fighters of this generation, sparring on social media over who turned down who back when the two were negotiating for a fight in 2015. Sergio, Ward has been retired for several years. Golovkin is in the final stage of his career, but do you still want to see these two guys share the ring?
No, I don't, because we know that Triple G is almost going to be 40 years old, and he's chasing for one last great payday in Canelo. And with Andre Ward, he's a Hall of Famer. He retired perfect, 32-0. I remember in 2018 when we filmed the Contender 5, I had a conversation with Nazim Richardson, the late great trainer from Philadelphia. I told him, Nazim, would you ever want to see Andre Ward come back? I mean, he left a lot of money on the table. He says, nah, guys like Andre won't come back because they'll put 100% into retirement, just like they put 100% focus and effort into their boxing career. There's no way that kid comes back. And those words lingered right there, because if you think of Andre Ward, the reason he's perfect, the reason he's the son of God and he makes the right choices is because he follows his instinct, he follows his heart. And this is a man that studies. This is a man that knows, that researches. He knows what can go wrong. He knows that it could hurt his legacy. He won't go backwards. He put too much into it, from gold medal to world championships in 2 weight divisions, to retiring perfect, to being well off, to being a broadcaster and a commentator. For him to come back just for pride, and maybe something else happen, maybe he gets stopped, maybe loses his it won't happen, man. I don't want to see it, and that's just the way it is.
All right, so let me give some context here, because I covered this up close for about 5 or 6 years. Back in 2013, when Ward was fighting at super middleweight, he was moving up in weight to fight Edwin Rodriguez. At that time, Golovkin's team went to HBO and said, you're gonna pay Rodriguez $1 million, we'll take the fight for $1 million. It didn't happen then. In 2015, there was a brief negotiation between Ward and Golovkin. If you listen to Ward's side, they made a legitimate 50-50 offer to face Golovkin at 168 in 2015. Golovkin's side says that they made the offer, but it was after they announced Golovkin's pay-per-view debut against David Lemieux, which was a big fight, after which they intended to chase a fight against Canelo Alvarez. So it didn't happen then, and it ultimately didn't happen at all. Now, I'm still down with seeing Ward and Golovkin go at it. I mean, Sergio, this is not Mike Tyson against Roy Jones. Golovkin is 39 years old. Ward is only 38 years old. And I know he's been retired for a few years now, but have you seen Andre Ward? He still looks like he's in good shape. And you can't tell me that if you give him 3 months in camp with Virgil Hunter, he's not gonna be able to get back in the kind of shape you need to be in to be a high-level boxer. So it's not what it could have been, but a lot of fights aren't what they could have been. And I'm still down to see Ward Golovkin swear off at 168 pounds.
Of course you are, because you're a fan of nostalgia, and a lot of people are. Like, what if? And then when you see it, it's like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. I'm not saying Andre Ward won't win. I probably will make him the favorite against a 40-year-old Golovkin, because styles make fights, and I would naturally put Ward ahead. But when you're out of the ring 5 years, I don't care how in shape you are, how great you are, what technique you have. 5 years is 5 years, and you already set your mind on retirement. You can't just get that hunger back in 2-3 months, man. It has nothing to do with physicality. It has nothing to do with anything else other than hunger. Andre Ward won't have that hunger in him. And if he does muster it, he can't do it for 3 months in a camp because his body won't let him. He's been out of the ring way too long. And Golovkin, you know, even at 40, he's still dangerous.
Well, okay. But Ward in the past has at least flirted with the idea of coming back. So it's been on his mind at different times since his retirement. And look, I mean, it's not a fight, but you see that little video that was on social media of Ward and Shakur Stevenson kind of fake sparring there a little bit. He's still got some reflexes. He's still got the smarts. And I'm reminded, Sergio, of how Floyd Mayweather finished his career. Back in Floyd's prime, he had tremendous reflexes, just like Andre Ward. In the latter stage of his career, he still had some of those reflexes, but he won a lot of fights based on ring IQ. And there are no fighters in boxing today, and few fighters in history with the brain in the ring of Andre Ward. So I still think he can be effective. And Golovkin, as you said, always dangerous with that power.
He can be effective, and the reason he'll do it, and you mentioned a great name, a perfect example, Mayweather. What do they both have in common, aside from retiring undefeated and being Hall of Famers? They both live a clean lifestyle, and everyone knows that. So that's going to be another thing that you got to consider there. But it's just the pride of a fighter like Andre Ward, and the responsibility and the intelligence and everything that he promised the world. And he's already in the Hall of Fame. There's no reason to go back, not for pride, not for money, and not for another feather in your hat. That's not the way the Son of God thinks, man. He won't come back, whether you want it or everyone else wants it.
Oh, stop. If they fought, you'd watch it.
Well, I'll tell you the hashtag for it. Hashtag SOGGGG.